All right, I'm back giving you the second update in this content series about what is going on with 4x400, the holding company for the brands that we at Common Thread Collective own ourselves. And last time I talked to you, I told you about how we were in a cash crunch. So had basically a $300,000 in liabilities against about 120 grand in the bank, plus a $70,000 payroll, and that was a huge challenge in front of us, and that was going into the Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. Of course, what I told you was we needed to have a big Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend, and I told you all of that because I know that a lot of you can relate. I know that a lot of you went into Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend this year going, this has to be big for my business to work, otherwise it's going to create major ripple effects, major changes. You start to think immediately about pivoting or firing people, and those all kinds of things like that come up when you run into challenges like that. And I mean, I think just one of the things right away is to say here that there is a kind of anxiety with entrepreneurship and with leading this side of a business that I think is hard for sometimes people to relate to who don't quite know what this is. Like, I think of my friends who work for Boeing and their 150,000 employees or whatever it is. Not to say their jobs have no stress, they certainly do have those things, but it's just a different kind of deal than what does the P&L look like today? Did we make enough thousands of dollars, not millions of dollars or whatever, and sometimes millions of dollars, but did we make enough thousands of dollars to move the ball down the field a little bit farther, get us a little closer to our goal, sometimes that goal just being stability itself. And so for us, Black Friday, Cyber Monday looked like a pathway to stability in an early stage of growth. All four of 4x400's brands are really in the sort of like 2 million-ish range in revenue. Against enough costs on the front end, not that we like run a really big, and we run relatively lean, I think, but we don't run super lean. We have a decent sized team, about 8 of us, and we also are trying to create pretty large outcomes. So that means that we try to put enough resources into that to make that happen. But that means at this stage of the business, there's a fair amount of fixed costs against not quite the revenue numbers we're trying to get to. And so you probably know what I mean when I say that, right? Like, over the long term, we want to create $10 and $20 million businesses. And as you grow a business to that size, the assumption is that the costs don't scale with the revenues in all kinds of different places, right? Sometimes your COGS get cheaper. Sometimes, again, the fixed costs get lower, things like rent and the cost of some people and some of those things. And that's a little bit of a fantasy, right? As businesses grow, there are costs that are unforeseen, and I've walked through that process before. But theoretically, there's more money to be made over the longer term if you can just kind of get to that stage. And so what the anxiety represents for me in this stage of business for 4x400 is, are we going to be able to get to that phase without having major, giant shakeup? Can we actually get the ball down the field far enough, essentially to stay in the game? Which maybe I'm mixing my metaphors a little bit at this point, but you get the idea. So I want to tell you what happened for us with Black Friday, Cyber Monday. That's a lot of lead up, but I just want to give you the sense of anxiety that I felt about that. Even as we had planned on getting into a little bit of a hole to get ourselves back out of it. In particular, one of our brands, FC Goods, is very much a holiday brand, so we expect big holiday moments. We project that. We project it to be slower at other times of the year, but that means that we really need to deliver on those moments. And here's the big takeaway for me from Black Friday this year that I saw across the board. Our brands, CTC, everybody else, maybe because of how far back Black Friday was in the year this year. I mean, 2 of those days of Black Friday weekend actually made it in December, which is just very late in the year, and I think that had some effects. But here's what I saw. Huge success. I hope you experienced that too, but I was just blown away by numbers I was seeing all over the internet, all over our clients' accounts, all those kinds of things, between CTC, 4x400, everywhere. It just seems to me that as people had the anxiety rising, like I experienced, at the same time, there was also really big outcomes being created on Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend this year. So that's really good. I'm going to recap quickly kind of where we landed and then tell you what I'm thinking about what's coming next. So 3 brands, by far the biggest of those over that weekend was FC Goods. Again, it's a gift product very much. We frame it that way. People love it as a gift. We have an interesting thing happen. I don't know if I mean, some of your businesses probably experience the same thing. Most of the way through the year, we're about 80% male customers, but then at the big gifting moments, we're about 80% female customers. And that kind of tells us right away that at those times of year, people are buying it not for themselves, but as a gift. Once you get to the big shift towards female customers, lots of women in particular talking about buying for their dads and brothers and boyfriends and husbands and those sorts of things. Not that women can't use our products, but that tends to be what they're buying for. So FC Goods, on Friday, biggest revenue day ever, did about 40 grand. Just under, like 39.5, which is of course those little moments of frustration you have sometimes as somebody running a brand. You just want to see that number get hit. And then Cyber Monday beat it again, went to 45 grand. We released a new product every day of the weekend, and we did a relatively small discount. FC Goods doesn't really discount, and that I think worked pretty well. That's kind of the post-mortem on that. Having just the ability to get free monogramming on your wallets, as well as to introduce people to new products throughout the weekend was effective. It gave us reasons to email people. It gave us reasons to get free traffic to our site from email addresses we'd collected throughout the year, and that just delivered. We ran those things at roughly 4-to-1 efficiency of revenue over spend while ramping our spend significantly relative to what we normally would do. And so I would say that really worked. Slick Products and Bamboo Earth both did almost exactly the same amount of revenue through the weekend, about 82, just over 80 grand, both of them. And that's interesting too, right? Not as obviously gift products for either of them, but Slick had a big sale, Bamboo Earth had a gift with purchase sale, and I would say both of them in their own way did pretty well, setting ourselves up for the next kind of moment. Slick has been around for a little bit longer, and we know that that customer loves a discount, and so we offer them a discount and did that. Bamboo Earth is in an early stage where we're trying to acquire as many high-value customers as possible and reap the value of it on the LTV. People use that product for skincare. They come back, they buy it over and over and over again. So that means that I have 3 businesses that are in kind of really different places as we shift to the next phase. Definitely helped my cash situation, put a lot of money. Ultimately, between all 3 brands, you're looking at just under 300 grand for the weekend, which we feel really, really good about. Again, 2 of those brands basically didn't exist, or we didn't have them until the middle of 2018 and then early this year. And so we feel pretty good about that overall, and that definitely helps. So the question now is what's next? And this is like another part of, I think, leading brands and businesses that is incredibly, brutally frustrating. Before you have any moment to celebrate that actually all 3 brands did their biggest revenue days ever. Bamboo Earth did 30 grand on Black Friday after doing 11 grand for the entire month in Black Friday last year. It just the outcome is so much bigger than where the brand was before, and yet, if you're anything like me, what that immediately does for you is makes you think, what's next? What do I have to do next? How do I get there? So I'm thinking about 2 things. One, how do I max out the rest of the Christmas season? I'm gonna hold off on that to go into details until next week. We'll talk more about it. But then from there, next year, what is going to happen with the cash flow? How do we keep ourselves from getting outside of this cash crunch? Again, I'm going to leave that for next week because this is already getting long enough. What I want to end on today, though, before I go into anything that's coming next, is this. Stop for a second, take a deep breath, and enjoy victory if you experienced it. It's really, really hard to maintain the level of urgency, of passion, of effort that you need to sustain entrepreneurship and leading businesses over the long run. And I think one of the real keys, just sort of for the sake of your own health, your team's health, any of those things, and for the sake of enjoying what you do, is to stop, take a breath, and if you had a big moment, pat each other on the back, high five, cheers, whatever your style is, and just tell yourself good job. It's a lot of hard work. You're depending on big outcomes. And for me and for my team, we're just all stopping for a second, looking at the cash and going, okay, we're somewhere. We might be digging ourselves out of this hole. We're in a much better place than we were a week ago. Let's stop, say good job to everybody, and go from there. So I hope that was you as well. And as we go into the next couple weeks here, I'll talk to you more about what's happening for the rest of this season as well as next year. Thanks.